Great. So good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of UNESCO, my co-presenter, Ms. Erica Simmons, and my own behalf, I would like to express, first of all, appreciation for the opportunity to share our work on the AI policy roadmap for the Caribbean with other participants here at the 19th Caribbean Internet Governance Forum. Let me, of course, first say special thanks to Mr. Rodney Taylor, Secretary General, and Mr. Nigel Casimir, Deputy Secretary General, for the kind invitation, and of course, the team at CTU for their support. And here, we at UNESCO, we look forward to continuing and strengthening this collaboration. Now, during my presentation, I will provide, first of all, a sort of an overview of UNESCO's work in the area of artificial intelligence, and I will also highlight some specific Caribbean initiatives so as to set the stage for Erica's presentation, which will go more in depth into the actual AI policy roadmap. So what is UNESCO doing in the field of artificial intelligence? Well, actually, quite a lot. You know, our interventions are taking place around four main axes. Firstly, the development of standard setting instruments and supporting the implementation. Secondly, supporting capacity building. Of course, key to UNESCO's work is the sharing of national, regional, and international experiences through a variety of collaborative formats, and of course, conducting research, and based on this research, developing publications and evidence-based policy resources. Now, here I've highlighted just a few examples of these. So first, on the standard setting instruments, we see the recommendation.
Paul, excuse me, we're not seeing your screen if you're showing. Apologies.
Okay.
Interrupting.
Sorry. Is that better?
Yes, yes, thank you.
Okay. Thank you for flagging that. So I was saying, so we're actually doing quite a lot in this area, and the recommendation on the ethics of artificial intelligence, this was the sort of first instrument of its kind. It was adopted unanimously by all UNESCO member states in 2021, and there are two implementation tools: a readiness assessment methodology, or RAM, and an ethical impact assessment, which have been developed and which are being rolled out to support member states in the implementation of this recommendation. Now, in terms of capacity building, we've been developing a number of resources and products for addressing different actors. So, of course, AI, it presents new legal challenges. And so, of course, it is really important for judicial operators, and by judicial operators, I refer to people like prosecutors, lawyers, judges, etc., to look into the sort of challenges and opportunities that AI brings for the implementation of legal frameworks. And of course, the law. We have also new forms of evidence. We have to look at things like deepfakes. How do we address these? So this MOOC, a massive open online course, addresses these issues. Reporters. We've heard a lot about deepfakes. We've seen also the impact of disinformation, some of it generated by AI, and hate speech on society, on the economy. And so, of course, reporters who play a key role in bringing news, they also need to be aware of this. And of course, we see governments around the globe adopting AI and also other frontier technologies into their services as they seek to, better serve the public. So again, for civil servants, this is really key. We have several conferences going on, and I've listed here a number of the sort of research outputs. Again, gender, it's very important, and women make up more than 50% of the population. It's really important to address this to ensure that everyone is able to benefit and not be disadvantaged by AI. Now, what exactly are we doing specifically for the Caribbean? So, of course, within the Caribbean, we're doing all of these things. But in addition, we have set out a number of initiatives which really seek to take into account the Caribbean's unique context and, of course, leverage AI solutions for the socioeconomic development of the region. And so, for example, first of all, we see here a survey. Earlier this year and late last year, we developed a needs assessment for artificial intelligence, digital transformation, and open data for small island developing states. And of course, this serves to inform UNESCO's work. It's giving us a better understanding of where different countries are with respect to AI and the use of other frontier technologies. And of course, based on this, we can now develop appropriate capacity building tools and so forth. We see a growing market for animation and video games, and also the formation of industries here. Earlier today, I think it was one speaker referred to the work of Caribbean anime. And so we've been developing, for example, a survey which looks to understand how can AI and other frontier technologies better contribute to innovations and development in this area, and of course developing the orange economy, as it's called. We're also working very closely with governments. We've been involved with, for example, the CARICOM Digital Skills Task Force, sharing various resources, tools that are developed. And of course, we're currently working with the government of Antigua and Barbuda in the development of a national digital transformation framework. Now, I just wanted to flag an upcoming event. The 28th of September, it's declared as International Day for Universal Access to Information. And we're also involved in organizing a conference on this day. This conference is actually led by Mr. Cordell Green, the Executive Director of the Jamaica Broadcasting Commission. He's also the Chairman of UNESCO's Intergovernmental Information for All Programs Information Accessibility Working Group. This is actually the 4th edition, and it's an international conference, so please make note of this on your calendar. Now, before handing over to Erica, let me just say a few quick words about the UNESCO Caribbean AI roadmap. So this was developed as part of a broader UNESCO strategy aimed at addressing the needs of the regions to support the Caribbean's sustainable growth. The initiative, it of course aims to heighten awareness of AI and the prospects that AI brings to the Caribbean. It's of course aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals. It addresses issues such as innovation, education, and of course the reduction of inequalities. And the initiative of course seeks to bring together the various stakeholders, civil society, governments, academia, the private sector, and so forth, to collaborate on a regional AI strategy. Here, we've also benefited from the tremendous support of the Jamaica Broadcasting Corporation, IFAP, and numerous academic, industry, and civil society partners. Now, this initiative began in December 2020. It ran until April 2021. However, given the sort of new post-COVID conditions, new developments such as ChatGPT, and of course the new regulatory environments which we're seeing emerging around the world, it is important for us to update this draft document and also to engage with a broader gamut of stakeholders from around the Caribbean region. So with that, thank you, and over to Erica.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Paul, my collaborator. And I just would like to add my thanks to the organizers of this conference for inviting me to share some of the research that we've done, the updates that we've done to the Caribbean AI Policy Roadmap. My name is Erica Simmons, and I have been in the software industry for about 25 years, working with large enterprises. I am a researcher and expert in the future of work and AI in the Caribbean, and I've been working as a part of the UNESCO IFAP Working Group for Information Accessibility that Paul just spoke about. and I am a member of the UNESCO expert group on the implementation of the recommendation on the ethics of AI, and some of the tools that Paul mentioned, the ethical impact assessment tool, were developed by the working group that I took part in, which had about 30 experts from around the world, and I was happy to be able to give my input. As Paul said, the Caribbean AI policy roadmap initially was started in 2020, and our first draft of that wrapped up in 2021, and we're updating the roadmap now to reflect the current conditions. I want to start just with a definition of AI, and I'm really using the definition of AI from the UNESCO World Commission on the Ethics of Scientific Knowledge and Technology, and they define AI as machines capable of imitating certain functionalities of human intelligence, including such features as perception, learning, reasoning, problem solving, language interaction, and even producing creative work. This is inclusive of the data, algorithms, hardware, connectivity, and storage of these systems. And I think 2023, we can all maybe put that in the books, that it is the starting of what we call the age of AI. And I wanted to quote from Bill Gates, who's a leader in information technology, on how he sees the future. So he says that the development of AI is as fundamental as the microprocessor, the personal computer, the internet, and the mobile phone. And he is pretty sure, and I think the experts are sure as well, that AI is going to change the way that we work. It will change the way that we communicate with each other, and entire industries will be reoriented around it. And businesses that can implement AI successfully will distinguish themselves by how they use it. And I want to say today, working in industries with companies like Microsoft and Google and Amazon around large language models, we're seeing the proliferation and the integration now of large language models into enterprise systems. This year, we saw Microsoft introducing it into their entire stack. So all of us that use Microsoft PowerPoint, we use Excel, Word, Office, SharePoint applications, will start to see what they're calling a co-pilot, which is the integration of AI into these applications. We know that hundreds of millions of people around the world use these applications on a daily basis. So our work will continue to change over the next short course of years. While the opportunities for AI are vast, we know that they have risks. And again, Bill Gates just last month said that the risks are real. For the moment, we can manage those risks. We're not talking about the existential threat that has been predicted by many experts around the capabilities of AI. But let's just look in the next 5 to 10 years where we see some threats around AI. Paul has already mentioned some of those. So deep fakes and misinformation generated by AI could affect our elections and our democracies around the world and in the Caribbean as well. AI will make it easier to launch attacks on people. AI will take away some people's jobs. I mean, they are predicting that between 30 and 50 million jobs around the world will be obsolete. We'll have new jobs coming on. We do know that within the AI systems, within the large language models, there are biases and mistakes that can happen. And we're very concerned about students and the future of education. Once having these tools at the disposal of students, how will we use them? I wanted to also just let you know that in relation to the policy document, we also started out by thinking about the Caribbean and who we are as a people, our rich cultural heritage, our biodiversity, and the economic potential that we have in the region. And some important questions were put forth when we started to think about redoing the paper. How are we going to ensure the safety and well-being and the sustainable development of our people? How are we going to embrace the benefits of artificial intelligence while mitigating the risks? And so we have been orienting around 4 pillars that will fall around the integration, the regulation, and the transformation of the region and skills so that we can harness the potential of artificial intelligence. So here are the key pillars. Pillar number 1, we should be looking around governance and transformation, ensuring the safety and security of the people in the region. And I have another slide coming up that will get into more details. Principle number 2, what are we going to do about upskilling and education, making sure that we can foster collaboration and capacity in the region? Resiliency and sustainability. So how are we going to adapt to the AI revolution? How are we going to use the tools to ensure that we are resilient and we can be sustainable and use it to address some of our core problems and core issues that we see in the region, such as poverty and climate change? And then this principle around preservation and creativity really speaks to the unique identity that we have here in the region, and how can we use AI to safeguard our identity and also use it as a way to be able to develop economic prowess. All of these principles were developed and thought about in a human-centric way. So we can get deeper into each one of them and talk about some of the opportunities. So principle number 1, we're looking at how we discuss in this principle the importance of establishing robust governance frameworks, policies, and practices to mitigate the risks associated with AI. We need to safeguard privacy, we need to protect data, and we need to ensure that there is responsible and ethical deployment of AI technologies in the Caribbean across the industry sectors. And so we really need to look at how we establish those governance frameworks, the legal and ethical considerations. And the good news is that we have regions around the world, in the EU and the United States, that have already tackled some of the laws and lawmaking around artificial intelligence. So there is already a body of expertise out there on creating new laws and frameworks addressing AI. We need to look at privacy and data protection. Data is the new oil and gas. It will be worth more than gold in the future. So we're going to have to figure out how to protect data, how to make sure the privacy of our citizens are protected. An example of that is in the EU, they have a GDPR, which is a privacy regulation. For example, data that is generated in the region of Europe cannot leave the region of Europe. It has to stay in region, in country in many cases. So maybe that is a strategy that we can think about in the Caribbean. And of course, transparency and accountability for any harms that may happen around the systems that we're using across industry. Intellectual and property rights is going to be important. Obviously, we're creative people in the region. We know that AI has the ability to create intellectual property from existing information. So how are we going to be able to protect our intellectual property that's generated in the region, or perhaps figure out a way that we can exploit it? On the area of disaster management and emergency response, there's probably some opportunities there. You all that work in this sector, you're obviously aware of the opportunities around cybersecurity and AI. And we really need to look at law enforcement and border security. And I know in the region, have already been discussions about AI to help with border security. The use of AI in the second principle is really focused on how we're providing the Caribbean citizens the opportunity to acquire the skills that are needed to participate in the new AI revolution. And we know that, as we said, several will be obsoleted, new jobs will be created, and we're already seeing that this year. We have a bunch of new engineering professions around AI, prompt engineering, that's coming online. Again, adapting, upskilling, addressing AI-related job displacement is something that we'll have to deal with here. How do we look at shared infrastructure? How do we make sure that we have governance in the use of AI in the public sector? We're going to have to think about public-private partnerships, research and development centers for the region, AI training programs, and really how we're going to look at international collaboration, making sure we can leverage the expertise that's already been matured around the world. Principle number 3 is really how we are going to adapt to the AI revolution by calling up the collaborative efforts of stakeholders, governments, industry associations like you all, governmental organizations to build capacity around things like solving our issues around climate change in the region, our renewable energy challenges, and really the digitization of government, digital transformation of industry that needs to happen so that we can leverage the tremendous opportunity there. And then just on the left, you see some of the industries in the region that we're taking a look at. Of course, agriculture and food security, tourism and hospitality, the climate change, telecommunications, healthcare, education, and the public sector. How will AI either enhance or potentially cause problems for those sectors going forward? The fourth area is really about how do we preserve our unique Caribbean identity, our rich cultural heritage, our ways of expression, while capitalizing on the potential for AI. But we must balance what we have to do on the capabilities on AI and preserving our own identity. So here it is around how are we going to preserve our cultural identity with AI, our unique language, our translation? How are we really going to digitize our historical records? Will be something that we can look at as a region. And I do believe there will be new business models that will be developed potentially around how we do that. So with that, in the paper, we have also recommended some areas to start with. So of course, assessing the current AI landscape, which is part of what we're doing in our stakeholder feedback documents, so that we can establish a Caribbean AI strategy. We'll need to develop those ethical and regulatory frameworks, and we do have frameworks already that could potentially be leveraged and expanded to cover AI. We'll need to enhance our data governance. If data is going to be the new oil and gas, what will that look like in the future? And what's the protection of privacy? Or are there new data, new business models that can be created around AI and data? And then how do we promote AI research in the region? We have top universities in our region. How do we create collaborative enterprises, centers of excellence that focus on Caribbean AI? And of course, a lot of what UNESCO is doing and what you're doing as well as a part of the CTU is to really start these AI literacy campaigns, these education campaigns, to let people understand about the potential, the great opportunity that we have with AI, but the potential threats. And then look at the skills that we have in the region and how they will be transformed under AI. So these are the 4 pillars and also the areas of starting focus that we're recommending for the region. I'll stop there and see if we have any questions or comments. I know we only had 30 minutes for this discussion. So if there's any questions or comments, I'm happy to take that at this time.
Can we start with a warm round of applause for Ms. Erica Simmons and Mr. Paul Hector? Don't forget, please post your questions in the chat. Do we have any questions in the room to start?
Hi, I'm Jacqueline Morris from the Trinidad and Tobago Multi-Stakeholder Advisory Group. And one of the things that that's really implicit in large language models is the material that they're trained on. And because they're large, they basically, go scrape the internet and so forth. And from there, they do perpetuate stereotypes, racism, misogyny, and so forth. How would we, manage to deal with that with our much smaller amount of digital material to train our local AIs on?
That's a great question, and you're absolutely correct on the fact that we actually have an opportunity here to develop our own language models that are focused on our context, right? What we're seeing in industry right now is a view to create large language models that are very specific, that focus on certain information, like around a region or a company's information, and having a large language model based on that. I actually think this is an area of opportunity for the region, and we're actually seeing some of that work in Africa right now. They're also creating their own large language models that have an African context to it. I think those models will be of interest to the owners, the big tech, the owners of these foundational models. So I think it would be worth our while to think about an initiative where we can develop our own language models. I think there's new business models in there. If you think about in the Caribbean, where we create data every day, actually, or on our phones. This meeting will be a collection of data as well. So if we think about that, we're creating information every day. Is there a new business model that would encourage people to allow access to that information, or where they can deposit that information somewhere? And we talked about data banks in the first paper, and I still think that there's a good opportunity for us to be able to provide and to create those regional specific large language models.
Wonderful. Christopher Chinampu, you had put a question in the chat. Could you copy and paste that into the Q&A? I have a question. We in the Caribbean are slow to adopt because people aren't necessarily upskilling at a fast enough rate. Businesses are now holding on to outdated processes in order to hold on to personnel and facilitate their employment. In the AI age, what can happen to businesses that fail to implement AI tools within their businesses due to wanting to hold on to old personnel?
Yeah, I think that we are definitely going to be seeing obsolescence of companies that don't adopt AI. AI right now is bringing efficiencies to business anywhere in the percentage of 20% more efficiency in processes. The very first places that I'm seeing a lot of that take place are in areas of the industry that require like customer service. We're seeing AI generated bots and virtual agents being able to help customers at a faster clip, answer questions. So I don't think it is a matter of being slow. It's about how competitive we're going to want to be. AI, just like all of the transformative technologies, have a way of flattening the earth so that you can get services from anywhere. And I think companies and the region and even consumers are going to be looking for that extra productivity that will be gotten from AI systems. So business systems now will be sold with AI in it. So I think even if you're going to a next generation of a business system, those vendors are going to have AI interlaced in there. So we should start preparing, and we should start thinking about those people that will be obsoleted. What types of jobs would they do? What sorts of things are they gonna do in the future? So I think it's all about being competitive. And maximum shareholder value for companies is going to drive productivity, and AI has proven in industry to drive productivity.
I have some questions from the online chat. Ms. Carol Roach says data collection is an issue in the Caribbean in terms of how we collect and what we collect. We build online services with little thought to data analytics. The framework does not explicit with regards to data strategies. Will this be addressed in the policy? It is important to not only be users of AI, but developers.
Yeah, there is a focus on data and a regional data strategy, where data will be held, how data will be created, and some ideas in the paper that would put that forth. I think we should get very explicit about data, how we're going to protect it, how we're going to generate it, and how each of our citizens in the region can use their own creation of data to, develop wealth. Again, I think this is an area of opportunity for us that we should be very explicit and specific about a strategy. And in the paper, we'll outline some more thoughts there.
Okay, this is from.
Sorry, could I just jump in here? Someone raised the question about, how do you keep up? And I think that's something which is really getting a lot of attention. I mentioned briefly the competency framework for civil servants. Again, I think governments will be one of the first places where we will see en masse adoption of these systems. And it's really crucial for us to ensure that more persons they are prepared. Another thing which we're pushing a lot is something we call media and information literacy. This is basically a set of skills which looks at both the sort of technical competences in terms of using the various technologies, but also the awareness of the the potential harms, the ethical implications. And I think this is something which needs to be rolled out across society. We've been talking for a long time about lifelong learning. We talk about continuous professional development, but I think this is really, I think AI really brings to the fore the need to start implementing these things. It's an age of knowledge. It's an age where we have to be responsive. The greatest source of value addition today comes from innovation, from creativity, from using knowledge. And so it's really essential that we as a people, we see this whole process of education as not something which is limited from, just kindergarten, primary school, secondary school, and university. No, it's really a lifelong process. So I think embedding that type of awareness, that human capacity, that's the thing which will give us, a perpetual ability to adapt and change and evolve. That's key. Thank you.
I just want to add to, and I want to just say some kudos to UNESCO for their work in this area. For at least the last 5 years, they have been developing tool sets. Someone asked, how do you learn to evaluate? Well, there's a wonderful risk assessment methodology document that was created from the working group this year. Lots of tools out there from UNESCO addressing this very topic. They've been the leader I've seen in making sure that they're staying constant on the evaluations, the developments in AI. So I think we will also have a list of all of those tools for you to be able to access going forward.
Question from the online chat. Mr. Chinapu says or asks, Mr. Hector spoke to broadening stakeholder engagement. What initiatives are being undertaken to broaden engagement?
So, okay, so first of all, this whole area of engagement, this is something which is really at the part of the raison d'etre and at the core of UNESCO. With specific reference to the AI policy roadmap, what we envisage, there's a survey. I think if we have time, Erica will share with you this with you. And what we're looking to do is to collect responses to this survey. We'll also be sharing the document. We've already been using both our networks, also searching on the internet, finding various persons across the Caribbean who will be sending this information to. And we do recognize that sometimes there is a bit of time pressure. People are not able to respond in writing. So we'll be also organizing a number of town hall meetings where people can come, express their views, share, respond, react to other comments. And the beauty of the tools that we have today, we're able to record conversations. Of course, with your permission, we have things like captioning. So this allows us to capture a lot of that rich data that will be shared during these town hall meetings. And of course, once we receive this will be incorporated into the work that we're doing. And we will not just stop there. We will come back in a second round where we will then ask the question, did we get it right? Did we address the issues that you've raised? Are there also other topics, other things, during your reflections that came up? How can we address these? I hope that answers the question. Erica, please feel free to add.
Yeah, we have a long road between now and the end of the year to finish the paper up, start to socialize it broadly, get the feedback in and follow up. So there are going to be several activities that you'll hear about between now and the end of the year. And I hope that you will take part in that. You're actually the first group that we have presented the new pillars to. So you're the first, but I hope that you will continue to participate in this process.
Okay, we have three more questions until we move on to the next session. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Javed Sajjad, attorney at law and consulting with AI regulation. Just some comments. Well, I always begin with my AI presentations that the AI is like the internet. We first fear the internet, and we still haven't regulated all of the internet. We still have issues with the internet always, and we saw cyberbullying came up later on, and we didn't predict that on the onset of the internet. So with AI, how do we hold it accountable? How do we see where it goes? Any roadmap for the Caribbean? We're a very fertile ground of information in the Caribbean. And I've noticed that some conglomerates are using AI to make decisions in the tourism sector. And it's using data to supply this information, and it could be sometimes prejudicial. And then apart from the tourism sector, there is gender biases in the AI. So I focused on discrimination and privacy issues within development of AI and in the context of the Caribbean. And in developing the roadmap, I do agree with UNESCO when they have a human rights centered approach and the pillars of the UNESCO ethics and how we develop it further. And we just have to bear in mind that without our data, the AI is nothing. So data is, as we say, and is the new oil, and the machine learning process takes in all of this data. So the accountability begins with the machine learning process and the human in the loop. And we are the human in the loop when developing the policy roadmap. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that comment. I think we definitely need to examine the tools that we're going to be adopting to, make that will be integrated across industries. And we need to hold the providers of those tools accountable for their AI, for any harms that come out of their system. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to have some laws and regulations and governance around those tools. The ethical impact assessment, the risk assessment methodology document is an outstanding tool for looking specifically at software, making sure you're asking the right questions of the vendor, making sure that we can understand where this information came from, what they are putting in the AI in terms of explainability and accountability. So we're going to have to make sure that when we buy systems and we are implementing them, that we do a risk assessment on those tool sets before they're ever released into our work.
Just to add on what Erica said, earlier this year in February, UNESCO organized an international conference which looked at this issue of regulation of digital platforms. And one of the things that we try to tread very carefully on is, sometimes it can be a fine line. There are certain types of content, hate speech, for example, which is explicitly banned under international law. At the same time, having a bad attitude and being a rude and obnoxious person, that's not, it's maybe socially undesirable, but it's not a crime. And so this issue of potentially harmful content, how do we regulate this? And I think these are questions which will be addressed and revisited for some time to come. I appreciate very much the comments that Mr. Singh raised about tourism and bias, etc. But these are issues which have already reared their heads in areas like, for example, policing. We hear many cases about things like profiling, etc. And I think what's important for us in the Caribbean, and you raising the fact of tourism, again, we have to identify what are those issues which are of maybe greatest priority to us, and then we start tackling them. So again, tourism, of course, this is something which is of great economic, social influence for our region. So, that's definitely an area where I think as a region, we need to perhaps invest and look more closely at what are the potential and negatives of AI in this area, and really dig deep and develop specializations in this area, because again, tourism is something which is a global phenomenon, and we need to think also about when we identify these opportunities, challenges, etc., and develop solutions to them. This means that we can now offer these to other regions. And again, cyberspace, it's boundaryless. We're not limited by landmass, etc. So the opportunities for us to create new industries which build on our strengths. And as someone earlier said, there's lots of good brain here in the Caribbean. For a region of 4 million, producing 2 Nobel laureates and distinguished persons in so many fields, lots of potential here. Thank you.
We're going to go to SG Taylor, and then we'll take one more question after that.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Rodney Taylor, CTU. There have been calls by some fairly influential leaders for there to be a pause with respect to further developments on artificial intelligence, in particular around the launch of ChatGPT, for example, and other large language models. What are your thoughts on this call for a pause on further development of AI and for intervention at the level of United Nations and so on? What are your views on that? Thank you.
Well, I definitely know that there's no pause happening. The large language models are going in right now into all enterprise tools that are being sold. All the systems that will be implemented in the next 2 years will all have AI. I do think that we can't stop this, but I am a believer that we have to think strategically about the risks around AI. They're very real. I agree with what the people are saying. It's an existential threat. But for the moment, there will be no pause. So we should think about, as these systems start to proliferate into our workplace, our homes, how are we going to deal with that? How are we going to mitigate the risks? I think it's noble to call for a pause, but from my perspective in industry, we're seeing no pause there. It's actually full speed ahead, and AI and large language models are being seen as the next frontier for money to be made. It's the next trillion-dollar industry for all of the players, including Google, Microsoft, AWS, NVIDIA, all of the big tech companies. I think what we also have to focus on here is facing the reality that would we be okay with the power of those systems being in the control of a small few in the tech industry, 5 to 6 companies globally, all of the AI going back to their large language models, their training strategies for data. So in this case, we may see tech companies become just as powerful as nation states. So how are we going to address that going forward?
And just to piggyback on what Erica just said, I think again this raises the importance of education. You know, developing our skill sets. You know, building our human capacity. This is really one of the most enduring things that we can do. So again, education. Media and information literacy, and again, of course, this is something which goes at all levels of society, because I think by building our human capital, building our ability to respond, to address things, to leverage these technologies to enhance our personal development and also the institutions in which we live. I mean, remember, many of these technologies can allow a company operated by a single man or woman to have the scale, the capabilities of, you know, large current companies at present. So, you know, I think we need to sort of rethink, reset our expectations, and just keep going forward. Thank you. Okay. Those are my personal opinions.
Yeah. Ms. Simmons, you spoke about AI in the classroom. How are countries around the world adapting to AI in the classroom? And what are some of the things that we in the Caribbean should be looking at and implementing for starters with respects to AI in the classroom?
Well, I think firstly, we should start allowing AI in the classroom. Tools like ChatGPT in the classroom. ChatGPT to me is a tool just like a calculator. So when we first introduced the calculator, there were a lot of, there were a lot of people not wanting that to happen. We're kind of seeing the same thing here. But slowly but surely, I think teachers need to embrace AI in terms of providing personal one-on-one teaching. AI, like a ChatGPT assisting a student, is going to be a game changer. And then we want to teach students how to use AI and how to maybe spot things that things that are wrong. So being able to look at an output from an AI system and understand that it wasn't done by a human because of certain things. So I think AI actually has the ability to transform our education sector. We should start using it in schools as a tool and start having the students use it to help them with their schoolwork. In fact, I think this year in the US and Harvard, there's going to be a class that's going to be taught by ChatGPT. They're not going to have any humans teaching that class. It's going live this fall. So hopefully we'll have examples to call on and to pull on. But I think for capacity building, we have to start thinking about how we're going to use AI in the classroom and how we're going to use AI to really transform the skills of our people so that they can participate in the future economy. And a lot of them are digital illiterate, but that means that some people may not make it. And I talk about this a lot. Some people aren't going to be able to adjust to the future under AI, and that's okay. we have to figure out how to, make use and make those people useful. There will be young people that will grab onto this and take the bull by the horns. So just know, just as this transformation is happening, not everybody will be able to come into this next phase, but I think collectively we have a responsibility to make sure that they're taken care of as well.
Perfect. We have some comments from Deputy Sec, Mr. Casimir.
Yes, thank you. Just to kind of wrap up the discussion, so Paul, you can tell me if I interpreted correctly. The work that's currently ongoing result in an update to the AI policy roadmap from 2020-2021. Is that right? And if that's correct, in what sort of time frame could we expect that update to be available?
Okay. So just to clarify, there was a draft document which was developed. We were not able to complete the sort of peer review process. This was on the back burner. It was something to be taken care of. Now that we have resumed this process, we're looking at by end of 2023 to have the sort of consultations, discussions, inputs, updates, and of course feeding back to stakeholders.
Okay, and just to say as well that we have another session on AI tomorrow morning during the Internet Hot Topics session. Actually, it's the very first session tomorrow morning. We'll be looking at opportunities, risks, and challenges. And I'll invite our UNESCO participants today, if not necessarily being on the panel, but certainly to follow that discussion and contribute as